We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are talking to you about Oppenheimer. This came out a couple of days ago, and we were finally fortunate enough to be able to see it because it was actually sold out for every single showing starting on Friday this past week, all the way up until today when we got to see it on Monday. So,
Because we were lucky enough to see it in one of the IMAX 70 millimeter films or movie.
we actually got to see the IMAX film too, like the film reel, which was really cool. After the movie, we were able to go up the stairs and look into the filming room or whatever you want to call it.
The projection booth.
Projection booth. There we go. And we got to see the humongous reel of film that they have for Oppenheimer. And so it was kind of a cool experience to do all of that. And also see a movie in 70 millimeter. It was kind of different, to be honest. I'm not used to it because I don't even think I've ever seen one done that way. Some of the things I kind of noticed that I don't normally see is this, you could tell a little more flicker with the lighting in some of the shots. Like if I was looking at a character like out of my peripheral, I could see the light flickering because of the film, going through kind of a thing. I thought it was kind of funny at one point there was a fly on the on the projector, so you could see like a fly up on screen. Because I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my assumption is that nowadays most of that's digital and we don't get like big film reels. I think that's why this was kind of exciting to see. And so it was a very different way of just taking in entertainment at the movie theaters that we don't really get nowadays. So that was neat. But probably what you're all here to hear about is what was our opinion of the film, kind of what was going on in the movie. I will be honest, we probably won't have a whole lot of spoiler section just because it's a dramatic reimagining of something that's already happened. It's in history. So if you really want to know about it, look it up. There's not my guess is there's not a whole lot Hollywoodized, but at the same time, I didn't know anything about this stuff before I saw it. So I'm just kind of assuming what I saw is pretty much what happened. Just to kind of start talking about our thoughts with the film. For me, I was really excited to go into the film and see it. There's a lot of buzz about it. Every time we saw a movie in IMAX, there was a preview for this movie, and honestly, I thought the shot of the trailer where he's just kind of gazing, which is the picture in my background, where he's just kind of looking and you see the fire and you hear the chanting. It just something about it tells you like this is going to be an intense movie and it's going to be pretty good. And my opinion, it was. It was a very good movie in my opinion. There's a couple of things here and there, talking non-spoilers, that I would say maybe somewhat distracting or hard to understand. Sarah, do you want to tell our viewers about the car ride home and what kind of concerned you? You don't have to say about what happened like in the movie, but kind of give an idea of what was happening in the car when we were talking.
Sure. So the basis of the movie is about the creation of the atomic bomb, right? And how that came to be and how Oppenheimer was involved in that and whatnot. The part that I really struggled with is kind of like a subplot of maybe some relationships between him and some other scientists and political figures, and kind of the behind the scenes and of what's going on between those characters. And I'm trying to leave it vague on purpose for the sake of no spoilers. But at the same time, I don't fully understand it, so I couldn't really describe it very well, even if I wanted to. Which is part of the reason why this movie is losing a point or two for me, because it's a 3-hour film. And so a lot of it goes really fast because there's so much content, and yet there's still things that are like, I don't really understand how like fully what's going on in there. And I think part of it is that there is so many main characters. So many, like, gosh, I don't know, at least 20 people that are like major characters. It's hard to remember that many people's names. And I could pick up on most of them, but not all of them. And so when there's like little subplots and things, it's hard to fully understand and fully grasp and digest what's going on with these characters, because when they name drop certain people, I don't exactly remember who everybody is. Does that make sense?
Uh, I guess what I was going for was, so we were on our way home from the movie, and Sarah had said something along the lines of, "Did any of you, either of you two, because it was Sarah, myself, and my dad that saw the movie." She had said something along the lines of, "Do you guys remember so and so's name that was a part of this thing in the movie?" And none of us could come up with the name, but I could picture who it was, but I didn't know his name. I even described him thinking like, he's not a major character in this movie, but he's also in Batman, but couldn't really figure it out. So one of the things that's a little harder, at least for us, was trying to keep track of, who was who and sometimes what was actually going on. Because again, like Sarah said, there's a lot of content in the film. There's a lot they want to cover. We'll go a little more in detail with that in the spoiler section, but basically pay attention. Pay attention when you're watching this film. I would like to see it probably 2 or 3 times so that I can understand all of it. But I think what I went there for, which was seeing, the process of the atomic bomb being made, I feel like I got that, and so I was satisfied from it. Um, so yeah, the movie goes very fast with different parts. I would say it goes pretty fast, as in like not feeling too much like a 3 hour movie. I think it feels more like a 2.5 hour movie. There's not much of a difference there, but it doesn't feel like it's dauntingly long, like where you're trying to sit there looking at your watch kind of a thing, or your phone trying to see what time it is, like is the movie almost over. I wouldn't say it's like that, but there is a lot to unpackage here in the film. One of the criticisms I would probably give it, and again, you have to pay attention, is that sometimes it may take a minute, or some viewers may even be pulled out of the film because of this, but there's a lot of time jumps throughout the film. There's, the movie starts off at one spot, and like when the movie started, I was kind of like, what time are we talking about here? Because they're saying XYZ, and that doesn't really make sense of what I thought I was coming here to see. And so I was like confused on what was going on. But eventually along the way you can piece it together, but there are a handful of scenes where the time change jumps very dramatically, and really the only thing you have to go by is, do they look like they're older or younger? And so that part of it was a little hard to keep track of at times, but I wouldn't say it takes away too much from the movie, because I feel like after it happens a couple of times, people will probably get used to it and be able to pick it apart. Especially since a lot of the storylines that are happening in the different time frames, I think, are pretty unique enough where you can piece those separate things together. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Sarah?
I didn't really find it that confusing for the time jumps. It's a lot of what's happening during the creation of the atomic bomb, and then fast forward, I don't know how many years into the future, when he's being interrogated for various reasons. And so, during the interrogation, they'll kind of have flashbacks of the creation of the atomic bomb, and all the events leading up to it. And it's over the course of like 3 years that it took them to build this thing and to understand all of that stuff. So there's quite a bit of time to cover. But that's the going back and forth that you're referring to, I think.
Not
And
really.
okay, well then I'm not sure what you
Partially,
mean.
Partially, again, I don't want to give away too many spoilers. But yeah, I mean, I don't even want to go much further than interrogation, to say the least. Um, Anything else you want to say about the movie without spoiling things?
As long as the movie is, because it's long, I almost feel like some of it was too fast because there was a lot of parts where I was missing little pieces and, like the subplot I was mentioning earlier, and not being able to fully understand that because not knowing who some of these characters are that were important enough for that subplot. And so sometimes it felt like the movie was going too fast, like jumping between scenes too quickly, or like, okay, we got a scene of this, now on to the next scene, now on to the next scene, now on to the next scene. And so it was kind of, I guess, from that standpoint, jumping around a lot just because there was so much to cover and the movie is huge. So it's not like you could really ask them to make it any longer because it's already 3 hours. But I'm not sure how to fix that problem. I just know it was a lot. I'm still digesting the film. And like you said, you probably got to see it 2 or 3 times to fully understand everything.
I would also like to add, like it's a good and a bad thing for what I'm about to say, but when you watch the preview, you can see that there's a good handful of well-known actors and actresses in this film. When you see the full film, there are so many people that are recognizable that there were even some time, like, when you see somebody and you're like, gosh, where do I know them from? Like, even if you take that split second to try to think about that, you're missing information. And so I felt like that was a little distracting that there were so many people I recognized. But again, I think it's just best to probably see it 2 or 3 times. Probably not in theaters. I'd probably watch it once in theaters, definitely in IMAX if you have the chance to see it on the special film. But when it comes to streaming, I'd probably watch it an extra time or two to really take in what I had just watched.
I would agree. With that, why don't we jump into ratings? Jeremy, what would you rate this movie?
I would probably rate this film a solid 8 out of 10. I would I call it a perfect film? Probably not necessarily, especially since there's, like I said, there's a couple of different things going on. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish uh, what is going on, and sometimes it's hard to keep track of some things. And I think that has to do with the flow of the movie. Um, I know we talked about, there's so much time already being spent in the film, but honestly, I think there's at least a couple more name drops. Because there was even a time in the movie, and I thought this was nice, but there was a time in the movie where they were talking about somebody, and it was kind of early in the film, I think. And I was like, who was that person that they're talking about? And then there was like a quick flash of who it was from like a flashback of an earlier scene reminding us of who the person was that they were talking about. And I don't want that throughout the whole film because obviously that would be ridiculous. It's up to us to be listening and knowing who's who, but I think the film could have maybe done a little better job, maybe cut out some other things and expand on a little. It's hard. It is very hard because there's so much going on. To a point, this is probably what could have been two films put into one. So
Really?
there's some issues with how to consume the entertainment and understand what's going on. Uh, and again, it's a very good film, so I almost feel like I'm doing it a disservice calling it an 8, but my gut tells me 8 out of 10. What would you say?
I am also sitting at an 8. I did enjoy the movie. I thought that it was really well done, but not perfect. And I know we've said before that a 10 out of 10 does not mean that a movie is perfect. But the couple things that detract points for me was one, not being able to understand the subplot because there's just so much going on. And two, being that the movie is kind of too fast for a lot of it and that it's hard to understand a handful of things that are happening or who certain people are. And, they do a really good job of taking quantum mechanics and making it digestible for people who don't have like a physics background, I think. But at the same time, I have a bachelor's degree in engineering, so I have a pretty solid background to be able to understand this content, and I'm not sure how well the everyday person would be able to understand it.
I
So
ignored it. I saw the stuff on the board and I know they talked about things, but
I'm not saying I understood the equations on the board. That's not what I mean at all. I just mean more or less what they were talking about. Like I could understand, like it was like I know some of these words, you know?
well, from what I saw, I was like, oh, that thing went off and it went boom. Oh, this next one is a little bit bigger and it went boom. We're leading up to the big one. Yes, we are. That's about where I was at.
Uh yeah. So I I felt like they did a good job of breaking it down, without it being like a full-on science lecture for the audience, because I think if they were to break it down any further, that's what it would turn out to be. Um, I feel like the actors did a really good job. The music, the soundtrack for this was very intense. There was parts of it that kind of gave me horror vibes. There were parts of it that gave me drama vibes. Like I felt like the music matched the setting really well. Um,
Added to the tension.
yeah. Oh, for sure.
Because I mean, I wasn't even there, but like when they were like, again, I don't know anything about what happened with the atomic bomb, so like it was all fresh, and I was kind of wondering, like, when I don't want to go too much into spoilers, but like when they go to do one thing, what is going to be the outcome? Is it going to go perfectly? Is it going to go sideways? Are they going to have to, make another one or something, or make two or three and go through a whole bunch of trials? I didn't know. So like when they were actually, doing very high tense situations, I was right there with it, wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah. One thing that I'm gonna note from a non-spoiler perspective, because when we went into this movie, I think we had it wrong. Um, Granted, this source is from Yahoo, but there are parts of the movie that are in color, and there are parts of the movie that are in black and white. And from what I'm reading, this makes more sense than our original understanding before we saw the film. So I'd like to share this information to try to help the viewers. And that's that the colored scenes that are in full color are from Oppenheimer's point of view. And then the black and white scenes are actually from Louis Strauss's point of view. Louis Strauss is another character. He's played by Robert Downey Jr. I'm not going to go too far into who his character is, but essentially it's a colleague of Oppenheimer's. And so that's kind of the difference in the colored versus the black and white film. So
Interesting.
I feel like that might make more sense now that, looking back onto how the movie played out in the difference between those different scenes. So just wanted to share that information.
Nice. Well, so we agreed on a pair of eights. We Sarah did ask me what I would give it in the car, but I didn't ask her so that we would see if it would be any different. Yeah, interesting. We landed on the same number this time. So that was our non-spoiler section. So we'll give you a second here to either pause or click away because we are going to talk about some spoilers. Again, this is a movie that was super long. It is a reimagining of something that's already happened. So if you really want to deep dive, I would just look up the history. But right now, we're going to discuss the spoilers. And basically, what this movie is it is, in my opinion, three portions, like three different parts. Part one is learning about Oppenheimer's like early life and getting his job at the university. I forget which one. Where he eventually runs into Strauss. That's who gets him the job. Um, and then the middle portion is about making the bomb. And then the final portion is about Strauss being kind of a bad guy and like pinning some bad publicity on Oppenheimer. We do see that in the like throughout as well. I thought it was kind of cool the way they handled it. The majority of it is at the end with the hearing and stuff, but the movie opens with it. And what's cool about it is when they're talking about different things within the hearing, uh, when they discuss something, that's like the next thing that you get to see played out from Oppenheimer's perspective. So as they're talking about things throughout the court case, we see that uh, retold through what happened before. So like where the movie starts is after the bomb has been made, set off, and they're going through I would say like I don't know the I didn't quite understand the connection between the court case and the like interrogation stuff at the end where Oppenheimer's trying to get his clearance again for security.
So when I was looking up what the difference was between the colored and the black and white film, and it's the difference between these two characters. So essentially, Oppenheimer is in an interrogation because he's trying to get his security clearance renewed, like his like national security clearance. And I keep wanting to call him Levi Strauss because of the jeans. Louis Strauss, so Robert Downey Jr.'s character, he is trying to gain a seat in government. I don't know exactly what position it is. A board member, a chairman, a senator, something. I don't know. I have that piece missing. But he's trying to gain a seat in government, and that is why he's kind of on trial, but not on trial. Because they're having a hearing to see if he should be inducted into this government position.
Gotcha. So yeah, we see a lot of Oppenheimer's early life, and we see them discussing and creating the bomb. We see it go off, like you see in the previews, with the big tower and whatnot out in the middle of the desert. And then after they drop it on Hiroshima, then we get into this issue of uh, security clearance on, whether Oppenheimer is a supporter of communism or not, and is he a threat? Blah blah blah. Um, so that's the majority. That's basically the film. What?
I looked up the position he was trying to get. It was the Secretary of Commerce.
Gotcha.
That's what he was trying to be appointed for.
I guess a couple of the small other spoilers, I suppose. You know, they're trying to make this bomb before the Nazis, and so uh, they also believe that once this bomb is made, everybody else is going to want to make one because that's going to be kind of an arms race against everybody. And they were talking about should we tell the Allies about this bomb before we do anything with it, and they were kind of like, no, let's just go in and do it. But Russia had a spy in the mix because I believe after the bomb had went off, not too long afterwards, it was in the newspapers that Russia was now making some crazy bomb. So there was somebody involved at the site, like the desert town that they created. There was somebody there that was getting information about the bomb and then taking it to Russia. And so there's a big thing about that. And, Oppenheimer's like, no, there were no spies. It's all a bunch of garbage when in fact there was. And so basically, this big fiasco of they hired Oppenheimer to create this bomb and be on the team. And then once he was getting all this recognition and he was kind of getting the only spotlight was on him, people started to try to, throw him under the bus for making, this crazy weapon that destroyed, killed a bunch of people over in Hiroshima. You do get to see a little bit. It's honestly not as graphic as I thought it was going to be, but kind of when he after the bomb has gone off and people are like, cheering him on and stuff, he starts to kind of hallucinate and see people with their skin falling off, and seeing like a cooked body on the ground, like really turned. I think he steps into a dead body that he's imagining, and that stuff honestly wasn't super graphic as far as like blood and whatnot. It I kind of thought it was a little embarrassing the way that the skin thing looked, because it didn't look very good in my opinion, as far as cosmetic. But uh anything else you want to add about what's going on in the movie?
I mean, to that point, it's his imagining of what would happen with the bomb, not necessarily what actually happens when you're exposed to radiation and stuff. So maybe that's just how he pictures it.
Could have been.
But yeah, their faces looked like peeling wallpaper. Like you didn't see flesh or anything. It just looked like wallpaper peeling off their face, which was kind of weird.
Yeah. You do
Um,
get to learn about his romantic life quite a bit too, which was interesting.
his multiple affairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty crazy.
I
And
thought it was interesting that they were like they showed that like once he was actually a part of the team, his wife at the time could not handle the baby because their kid was screaming so much and she was tired of taking care of the kid, that they basically had a family friend babysit their kid for such a long time while they were away uh working.
yeah, they had the family friend babysit the kid for like, I don't know, 6 months, a year, something like that. It was a long time.
Yeah.
Um, did you get into the subplot that I was confused about?
I don't think I went into super detail, no.
Okay. So that's one section I think that's spoiler worthy is so Strauss is trying to get his seat on the for the Secretary of Commerce, right? And to kind of help his case, he kind of almost ruins Oppenheimer's life by this is really hard for me to describe because this is the subplot that I don't fully understand, but here's my basic I know the basics of it, I just don't know the inner workings of it, like the fine details of it. But essentially, Strauss has somebody he sets up Oppenheimer, right, as a security risk by having somebody else leak information that should never have been leaked. So he sets him up, and it kind of comes to light that Strauss isn't really on the side of with the scientists. And so that's how he winds up losing his appointment to his secretary position that he's trying to get. So he ruins Oppenheimer's career by having him lose his security clearance, but it also backfires in his face because now he loses his position that he's trying to be appointed for that he thought he had in the bag. And so that kind of feud between the two of them is where I feel like there could have been a little bit more detail, because who he had go undercover to try to ruin Oppenheimer is still a little unclear to me, or how he actually did that, because it was so sly and kind of like under the table like, and they don't really tell you until the end of the film. Um,
I
so
think
that's where there's a little bit of confusion still for me.
I think what was confusing for me was there was even during some of these scenes where they were interrogating him about the clearance, is that some of it was his imagination. And so it was kind of hard to be like, wait a minute, is this really happening or is it not? And then you start to get a clue because like the part that I'm imagining is when he's just kind of sitting there staring, and then the guy is just like yelling at him, and then there's like big light comes on Oppenheimer's face, and I was like, oh, he's imagining this, because then when they come back to reality, they actually are like super calm and talking to him. He just feels like all this pressure on himself. And so it was kind of hard to distinguish during that time what was real and what wasn't. And I think that's kind of what made it hard to understand what was going on.
Yeah.
Because there was a good chunk, I don't know how long it was. It felt maybe like 5 minutes where it was a constant. It was the scene where Strauss had left the courtroom and then went into his private room, and he was just going on a rant about Oppenheimer. And it was cutting between that and the interrogation room where they were starting to ramp up a little bit with their questioning and stuff. And so the mood and the tension of the film is basically trying to push you along, but at the same time I'm kind of like, I'm like 2 minutes behind on this and I can't keep up. It's like someone is pulling on your hand and trying to, run in a direction or whatever. uh I kind of felt like that jet lag with the movie, and that's why I need to see it again at some point to maybe, um pick up the pieces a little bit.
I think jet lag is a really good way to describe it. And that's kind of what I was trying to get at when I said the movie goes almost kind of too fast because it's hard to keep up on all the different little things that's going on. It almost feels like a 5 hour movie compacted into three.
Yeah, that's why I said, it probably would have been a little bit better to be like 2 or 3 movies, but I totally get it. Like, you know, I don't know if I would see the first movie that's all about his young life, wait to the middle part where they, do the thing about the bomb, and then the third part. Although it's kind of, the more I talk about it, it's kind of enticing. The first, usually when you see movies, the first one is kind of, a little lighthearted and getting you into the stuff. The middle one is supposed to be the dark film, which is about the bomb, and then the third film would be slightly dark but resolving things and be the court case and all that. But we got what we got, and we got to take it for what it is.
Yeah.
Uh, Anything else you wanted to mention about the movie before we close up?
I feel like that sums it up pretty good. I think it was really cool that we were fortunate enough to be able to see it in IMAX in the 70 millimeter film that it was filmed in, because I know not a whole lot of theaters actually had access to that film. So that was very cool.
I think you said like
Uh,
31 or something.
yeah, 31 in the country. So very cool. Definitely go see it if you get a chance, especially knowing the difference between the colored film and the black and white film. I feel like that would have helped me maybe just a little bit to understand why they kept bouncing back and forth. And if you missed that in the beginning part of the film, or in the beginning part of our little clip here, the colored portion is Oppenheimer's point of view, and the black and white portion is Louis Strauss's point of view, or Robert Downey Jr.'s point of view of what's going on. So I think that would probably have helped our understanding just a little bit. But yeah, anyway.
Nice. All right. Well, that was our thoughts. And again, we both gave it eights. So that was our rating for Oppenheimer. Like Sarah said, it's a great film. There's just a lot to unpack. See it in theaters at least once. And if you get the chance, see it in IMAX. And then I would probably wait till streaming to see it, a second or third time to kind of figure out what all else was going on. But overall, very, very good film. If you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We got a lot more movie discussions coming your way. I think we have, in a few days, we'll have the Haunted Mansion coming out. I think that comes out on Friday, so we're very excited to see that, and plenty of others throughout the year. So make sure to turn on notifications, drop us a like if you like the video, and drop us a comment letting us know if you saw Oppenheimer and what were your thoughts. And if you have any well, say don't put any spoilers in the comments. I was going to say, if there's any clarifications you can help us with, do it. But let's not put spoilers in the comments. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.